Howdy, gosh damn dingle doodle, everybody. Adam Cleary here for What Culture, joined by Scott Tailford and Amy Rapia. And we, the three, have just seen Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, just going to get this straight out of the way. This is the spoiler discussion. This is the spoiler review. Myself and Scott, we've been downstairs in our little man cave talking about all the non-spoiler stuff if you don't want things spoiled for you. But this is the spoiler review that will be containing spoilers. So if anything gets spoiled for you, then that is on you from this point on.
Tobey Maguire,
we're safe. Right,
yes,
yeah.
go on.
Yeah, they're in it. Right, we will structure this logically for your viewing pleasure, and we will try and contain ourselves. But major headline here is that everything you thought, everything you speculated about, no matter how much you tried digitally erasing from the little trailers, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are back in a Spider-Man movie in the year of our Lord 2021. We will talk about this in depth, but initial reactions in the form of a noise, please.
Well, the thing is, the way that they do it is you can kind of what do you want?
We'll talk about this. I just want a noise.
That was my general noise.
Thank you, Amy. What was your noise? I can't believe how hard that was to get out of you. Right, so. The story, as we already know from the trailers, is that Peter Parker, his life has been messed up now that J. Jonah Jameson has revealed his identity as Spider-Man to the world. They lay that out. He goes to Doctor Strange, asks him to fix these things because it's hurting the people that he loves. Basically, him, Ned, and MJ all failed to get into MIT because of the furor surrounding him as Peter Parker. Some people believe Mysterio, some people believe him. He's a divisive figure everywhere he goes, and that sets the scene. He goes to Doctor Strange, then he messes with the spell.
Yes, which we knew.
He messes with the spell. It rips open the arsehole of reality, and all the baddies, most of the baddies from the previous Spider-Man films, start pouring through. So naturally, everybody assumed, well, if they're coming, they're probably going to bring the former Spider-Men into the universe. And as is revealed about halfway in the film, they did. But we will get to that.
Okay.
So, initially, we have the conflict between Spider-Man and Doctor Strange setting up what is going to be the multiversal element of the future of the MCU.
Yes.
My first question is, how do you think, as a Phase 4 thing, this worked?
Amy, you feel free.
I mean,
she did not want you to do
I can absolutely go if you want.
Well, because I feel like I'm a lot more cynical.
No, I was going to say, I think I'm more negative
front.
as well.
I think it just feels like it was everything we were expecting. And my introduction to everything Phase 4 so far has been, people on Twitter already guessed that.
I think like it's a hard thing because like Endgame felt like an ending, and it's been one of those things where it felt so conclusive that it's hard to drum up the same momentum again. And I totally agree with Amy that like the TV shows have done nothing for me like at all. Like they're solid enough, but like Loki's a good concept and everything. But this is really weird because I think it succeeds in being like an event movie where it feels like you're going to see like a roller coaster of a film, but as a film it doesn't have that much weight necessarily. It doesn't really have that much. There are stakes, but you're just sort of shown them. It's not, we don't really feel much. And the first half of the movie doesn't really bring that stuff together very well. But in terms of like where do we go from here, it does kind of go, okay, the next big thing, the next Thanos level thing is multiverse stuff, and we're just going to go crazy with all that stuff.
I think it is getting described as like a series of moments. Now, you've already said you've got a slightly more cynical bent on this than most people. How did those moments land for you? Specifically the first half of the film where it's like plot point, emotion, feel this.
When I say the first half fell flat for me, I think that's still being generous.
I agree with that totally,
25 minutes into the film, the guy next to me picked up his coat and walked out. And I thought, he's going to the toilet, he's going to miss the movie. He never came back. He left his full...
He left a full coat.
Which versus the guy that was next to me was taking photos.
I did see that. I did see that.
Turn your phone off.
He'll be tweeting that.
The thing is, well, just quickly, we said this in the main review that it doesn't work as a film to give to someone to watch. Like it only works because it leans so heavily on 20 years worth of Spider-Man in every possible respect. There's little winks to certain meme things. There's a lot of scenes designed around the reception that Amazing Spider-Man had, and which I think that's my favorite scene in the movie is the three Spideys talking to each other. But at the same time, if you just gave this film to someone as a film, it almost isn't really a film. It's sort of like a weird roller coaster combination of nostalgia and everything.
I'm glad you brought that up because where the film then proceeds once everybody started to enter is it does not waste any time with backstory. As I said to you in the non-spoiler review, this film does not have time to sit you down and go, right, so these two are from the first couple of films, but these two are from the Andrew Garfield films, and what their story is.
They try to.
I don't even think they try, really. They kind of
like,
a couple lines. I found this dinosaur in the sewer. That's it.
Well,
That's kind of all they say about him.
I don't think that's fair. I don't, because there is several times that they nod to each other about, like, oh, I know you, or like, you're the Peter Parker I know, or like, I don't know. So you kind of, even if it's like a jigsaw kind of thing, you do put together who knows who from where. They drip it in, and you get
they
it.
certainly acknowledge the weirdness in drips and starts, but I think to actually, if you think about a conventional Marvel bad guy, they do tend to go to lengths to be like, this is why this one's really interesting.
Well, they do.
And they don't do that at all here. You have to just remember that from the previous films.
That's the thing that I was pleasantly surprised by the fact that they laid out where in their respective films they were taken from. Like Doc Ock says, I was in the middle of this particular thing, and then I was taken. I was like, okay, that's more than I thought you were going to give us. Because one of the leaked things was that he gets sucked through a portal when he's falling into the water at the end of Spider-Man 2, which isn't the case. It's earlier in that movie where he's being pulled from. But if we can transition into the thing that they do that is not in the trailers or hinted at whatsoever, is this therapy sit-down session with the villains, which I think is the best idea in the movie.
Yes, we shall get to that.
Yes.
Before that all happens, everybody's back. The Doctor Strange says, well, you've brought all this mess. You're going to have to go sort that out. So Spider-Man sets out to then basically capture all the interdimensional
Where is Doctor Strange during this? He just walks off. He's like,
he was over the bloody Grand Canyon.
That's after, though.
There's
a bit where he just walks away.
He just kind of leaves it. Like, go on, this is your mess. You can go sort it out.
Here's this like laser web thing, and I'm going to go over here.
To be fair, at that point, I thought this is going to be a real short movie. Like, he's just going to go out and zap them, and then they're going to put them back. So for a minute there, I found it a bit jarring. I was like, oh, and especially when they introduced the idea of Peter at first saying, oh, but I can't send them back. And I was like, why are we creating problems that don't exist? Why is the plot that thin?
Yeah.
But then obviously it comes out that like he doesn't want to send them back because they're going to die if he does.
We
and
should
I was
talk
like,
about the
okay.
fact that everything just happens because Tom Holland's Peter Parker is a moron. Like, which it
No,
happens.
come on, I'm sorry.
I don't think.
We said this in the main
No,
review.
we said in the non-spoiler review, we did say, I've recently discovered Pitch Meeting, and I do think they're going to have an absolute field day with this. However, I don't. A lot of
His
stuff.
heart's in the right place, and they do something with it.
A lot of stuff does happen because they
of
have
that.
to move the movie forward.
Yes,
I agree, but I do think they have just about grounded that character in enough of, oh look, he's just trying to do his best.
He's just a good little lad. He's a good little lad, and I'm sorry.
Understand if you were a
Let me
good
round
little
my
lad.
point out.
Yeah, you'll never be able to.
This actually reflects worse on you than the film, in my opinion.
Genuinely, my overall point is that they do something with it eventually, but in the moment, the first 2/3 of the film, it's just him doing stupid things.
Yeah, but the first 2/3 of the film, the whole plot is we're all going to MIT. This is a coming-of-age movie. Oh no, none of us got in. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. They try to sell these people as like they've got all these big, complex lives. They're all really deep, emotional people, and then it's like, oh no, the biggest struggle in the first 45 minutes of this movie is we didn't all get into MIT. And when he was like, you didn't even think to call the school first, I was like, no, you've lost my sympathy now. You've lost it.
That is a fair point, because the whole tension from there on.
Well, that was my overall point.
I am going to try and keep this loosely in line with the plot. From that point, after he does bring them all back, he's like, right, well, I'm going to send them all back now. That's it. That's all done. And everyone's like, yep, cool, great, grab a sort of that. He's like, right, back to send them all back to the moment of their death where they died fighting Spider-Man. And Peter Parker's like, can I just interject for once? The moment, so they're all going to die. He's like, yeah, well, you're not killing them.
No.
Another you killed them.
Yeah.
But it's not. This is clearly not our problem. It's someone else's responsibility. So from there, we get the big visual set piece, which is effectively Spider-Man and Doctor Strange fighting for the magic MacGuffin box to send them all back. And what did you think? Because that was teased a bit in the trailers. It was obviously one of the most eye-catching things Marvel had ever done when they started doing all that kaleidoscope stuff in Doctor Strange. Obviously, we've seen it plenty since then. The visual effects were
It didn't work for me at all.
iffy in this film. I don't think it quite worked as well this time.
They weren't.
You have thoughts on this, I believe.
They weren't as bad as Black Widow. Nothing can be as bad as Black Widow. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed that film as well, but good God, Marvel, if you insist on doing everything, and I mean everything, on a green screen, learn how to do it well. You've got more money than I could ever imagine possessing in 50 lifetimes, and you can't composite Willem Dafoe into a suit when he sat next to a bin. I find it so jarring. Like, I do also find myself just becoming one of those really annoying film Twitter people that's like, it's not real filmmaking because none of it's filmed. It's all just on a green screen and they like animate the rest. It's like, but it kind of is exactly what it is. When you see a shot where it's literally Peter Parker looking through a car window talking to an admissions officer and it's composited. Can you not film a little man against a blue sky?
Maybe their schedules
Can I just, in the interest of balance, can I just composite the suggestion that this is a curse that we, as people at the very hairy edges of the industry, would notice, but normal people, who bear in mind will be watching this video and the film, who make up,
Why does that feel like an insult?
Who I would estimate are about 99% of the movie watching public, is it so bad that normal people will notice it?
The thing with me is that like video games have come along such a way as well that like that whole final sequence and the big old crazy mirror dimension stuff, that was where it lost me more because everything's so rubbery. But no, that whole bit with the mirror dimension, I thought that was because that was the apex of me going, I'm really not feeling this. Like I'm not feeling anything that's going on. I didn't actually care about this film at all, or would recommend it at all until the half point when the therapy stuff comes in.
Well,
that's later on.
Conveniently, Scott, that's pretty much where we're up to now, because the overall winner of the Doctor Strange Spider-Man duel is Spider-Man. He does get his hands on the box. He stops Strange, sending them all back, and from there, they then decide to conduct a bit of a group therapy session. Now, I will say before we get into this, because this is the stuff you haven't seen in the trailer, the core crux of the film, where you say where it actually gets you on board, is the second half of the film. Now, I will say, so I want to address the tone in the room right now. It's probably seemed quite overly critical, and if you've stuck with us, thank you very much. I would agree that the first half of the film is
barely a film.
Barely a film.
Yeah.
It's just a series of moments. It's paper-thin plot points, stuff used to push it forward. But, and we'll get to why in a bit, our overall feelings of this film as a complete thing are very different to that. And it's because of the second half, which, as you say, starts Peter Parker, takes them all back to Happy Hogan's shag pad, weird condo thing he's got, and he begins to start, with the help of Osborn, who's the one who seems to have leveled out on his own.
Tony Stark.
Tony Stark's
like
Aldi brand Tony Stark.
Him and Osborn set about trying to basically cure all the other bad guys of either what's driving their evil motivations or whatever problem they've got that's causing this. Obviously, we've got the chip in the back.
I love that.
We've got all this other stuff. The electricity that Electro's become drunk on. They never really address Sandman's beef. He's just he just makes a mess of the flat for a bit.
Yeah, I didn't really understand him, to be honest, because at the start he was like, we're mates, I'll help you. And then all of a sudden he was like, actually, I hate you quite pointedly, and I'm going to do everything I can to make your life difficult.
None of the wider stuff, if you think about it, outside the movie at all, none of that stuff works, because either they're going to go back to their timelines and it's not going to work, or when they were plucked from their timeline, like their motivations were different, or their mindsets were different, their age is different, like, wow, all that stuff is just...
However, again, the plot element of that is paper thin, but it did make for the start of the best moments of the film, and I actually really enjoyed those scenes of all being together.
Well, so that's what I was going to say before. Like I said, it's a rounded thing because I think that like so much of the movie only gets set in motion because of the specific script beats. It doesn't feel character based. It feels like Peter Parker's just been a moron to get things done in a reactionary sense, which is to some degree, like, you know, believable and whatever, but they do right by it. They make his empathy super heroic levels. Like this version of Spidey will want to try and save Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Electro, whatever, and that's the bit where I was like, okay, I'm not questioning myself because I was entirely on Strange's side of just send them back, just make it right in that way. And we've
seen those films, all right. They're not our problem. We haven't got to worry about the conclusion.
Well,
we've already watched them.
Yeah, it's like it's not my problem, and it's like, well, no, like if you're gonna do a super heroic display of care or whatever you want this version of Spider-Man to represent, then it has to have that, and he does have to say in the face of how crazy it is to try and cure these people.
As you might imagine at the midpoint of the film where the hero takes all the villains to a flat to try and fix the problems, as you may be able to guess if you've not already seen it, things go slightly awry.
Yes, I was going to say, that's when Willem Dafoe snaps back from being the sort of kindly, regular version Norman Osborn when Goblin takes over, and he just has the most fun in the entire film.
Amy, can we just have a few words on Willem Dafoe, please? I know this is a subject close to your heart.
I just adore him. I just
He's
love
just a
him.
good dude.
I just think he's fantastic. Every time I saw him in the film, and he had that like the stupid signature grin like that, and I was like,
what? Sorry, you can zoom in on this when you do the
he does he like somehow he makes the top of his mouth flat.
Oh, I know, but it's for them.
You know what I mean.
That is spot on, yeah.
No, he's fantastic, and he really did add just something else to this, and that is partially because of nostalgia and partially because I just really enjoy the actor, but he also had a really good performance, his character was interesting. He did well. I really loved him in there.
I love the fact that they give him he does the evil cackle, like he does. You can tell he's loving being that character again.
In fact, he does so well, Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, that he leads us to possibly the biggest story beat at that point of the movie. Probably the most crucial story beat of the whole thing. He kills Aunt May.
He does. I think, Amy, you should talk about this. You made a very valid point that I hadn't even thought of.
They didn't need to kill her. It was entirely pointless. And I sort of come to a realization halfway through the film. I was like, if you were to hand these filmmakers a little, like a thing so they can tick whether or not they met the limits for the Bechdel test, they would laugh. They would cackle. They would Green Goblin that because, oh my God, there's 2 female, 3 if you count the admissions officer who has to be saved.
You cannot count the admissions officer.
No, you can't. Okay, well, so once again, even though she has to be saved. Blah, blah, blah. There's 2 women in the whole film, and they thought, you know what we should do to really develop this male character?
Reduce the woman count.
Kill her. Kill kill half of the female population of the film. It was entirely unnecessary. She could have been injured. She could have been grievously injured and it could have had the same effect and she still would have lived. Because then at that point, it would have been like, oh, she can still use her own strength as a human person who also happens to be a woman to pull through in hospital or whatever. But they were like, no, we'll kill her and we'll use that as a plot point for him having this turning around moment. It's lazy.
Which they do in Spidey fiction. And like, I get that it can feel really cheap and like, especially insulting in the modern day.
That's the thing is that half the people when I say it are going to be like, yeah, but it happens in every single one of them. How you not seen any of the movies? Yes, I've seen the bloody movies, but I've also seen the same bloody movie be told over and over again.
I think it's a particular shame in this because of the way they've used a character in the previous 2 Spider-Man films. She's been very much an original, fresh feeling adaptation of that May character.
Yeah.
And to then just go back and use her as effectively as a motivational tool so that Peter Parker can have his final act is really lazy.
Yeah.
And again, to be fair, it's something you can get away with, but not when it's just 50% of your female cast.
Yeah,
that's true. And applying that like rationale is completely 1,000,000% valid. I, being a big dumb moron, didn't even think of that stuff. I was going down the lens of like just pure Spidey fiction, and I realized because that was one of the scenes that made me tear up because she gets to say the line which we haven't heard anyone say in that specific delivery. Great power comes great responsibility. They didn't do it in Amazing Spider-Man. They got they just had like a weird rephrasing of it, so it hasn't been said for like 20 years. So that did make me tear up. I have a whole personal connection to Spider-Man, Uncle Ben, whatever. There's a whole thing, but that got to me in a way. And then when she passes away just after that, it's weird because there's so much in this movie in the back half that is getting back, quote unquote, back to what traditional Spider-Man is. Like at the very end, he makes the 616 suit. He does have that close person to him who passes away, which is the main driving force of that version. And
kill Ned.
He's not the same. Like he's not the same level of character.
Kill Ned.
And also like May dying becomes his driving force to be a hero going forward forever. Like it's her teachings that he's going to carry forward, like in Feast or for himself or whatever. Like you almost need that figure to pass away for him to become Spider-Man and do it properly, quote unquote, if you're going to be traditional to the source material. Yeah. If you want to do that story again, which I absolutely take the point that you could be like, we've done this 1,000,000 times, do something else, which is what they were doing for 3 movies, and now they're not.
I think you've sort of made both sides. People will not have a problem with it because of what you're saying, whereas obviously there are inherently huge issues with it.
It's massively valid.
My main problem with it is you've done a really good job of this character, right? And then you've then come up with a 3rd film with such rank female representation, and you've thought, well, what we'll do is, rather than really develop the 2 we've got, we'll use one purely as a motivational tool. We'll literally sacrifice the hard work we've done there.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's threaded into the fiction.
I will say, if it is threaded in the fiction, that's fine.
I think it does May a massive disservice to just say she's a motivational tool.
She is in this film.
She is.
But they talk
she
about...
doesn't do anything else in this film. She has no agency in the film.
Yeah,
other than to die. To motivate him.
She introduces Green Goblin to Peter so that Peter can have his emotional journey to being a heartful character that saves people. She gives him the message about him needing to learn that responsibility is important, and she has to do this by dying.
Is that not agency, though?
The agency to remind a man of how good he is.
I don't know. I see her as more than I think those things that she brings to the table are so massively important that I class that as her agency. She's on the same level as the Uncle Ben from the Sam Raimi ones.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's not a problem for Uncle Ben because there's 25 men in that film.
Yeah.
Oh well, okay.
You know what I mean? Like if you go and see that film when you're a woman, it's.
I mean, yeah,
women dying and crying so that a man can do a thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm not denying.
This is good. This will be pretty much what a lot of the discussion is going to be around, and this will be both sides of that particular argument. But regardless, she does nothing else, then does just die, and that leads us to easily the biggest thing in the film, which is then the following scene where, realizing that they need to go help Peter Parker, Ned and his ring, swing, swing.
He just kind of figures out.
He just kind of works out how to do it. Although, to be fair, did you drop a little clue? Oh, I've always felt like I was kind of magic. Oh, by the way, I can just. Doctor Strange couldn't do it for the first half hour of that film.
Another thing that just needs to happen. But anyway, plot needs things to happen.
It was funny, at least. At least
it was funny.
Yeah.
And they find, while trying to look for Peter Parker, they find Andrew Garfield.
Which, like I said,
how did this land?
Well, I liked it.
I was yammering on before. You should talk about your reaction to it.
No, I liked it. I liked how they brought Garfield in because there was like a collective intake of breath in the cinema when we all went, are they doing it? Are they doing it? They did it.
It's because they have that thing where it's just like Ned's like locate Peter Parker, and then you see a distanced Peter Parker.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have the same alleyway from Spidey 2 where it looks a lot like the one when he loses his powers. And it's like, is it going to be Maguire or is it going to be Garfield?
Yeah.
And then it is Garfield.
Andrew Garfield appears. He's like, "Well, but I'm Spider-Man. You're not Spider-Man, but I am Spider-Man." And there's hilarity ensues as he crawls around on the ceiling and gets rid of a spider web to prove that.
We did say before we were recording that the way that they then go into like, well, we're gonna have to get the other Spider-Man.
Well, this is the thing. I really liked the introduction of Andrew Garfield.
Same.
I thought it felt stumbled upon and accidental, and there was a genuine sort of like confusion about the whole thing. I then thought the way that they just went, well, should we see who else might be hiding around, and just brought Tobey Maguire in his Sunday slacks.
And it's him. It's not someone else. Like, it just is immediately him.
That fell flat for me.
He looks a bit weird as well. He's obviously lost quite a bit of weight. It's been 20 years, but to the point where he looks like a different dude. I was like, is he CG? Like, it doesn't look entirely like him.
I think that's just what he looks like now.
Yeah.
I will say there is a little line of dialogue that they drop in near the end, which does kind of imply that a lot of time has passed.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of been taken from. They play so fast and loose with how these people have arrived. Like, they've come from different points in time, different points in their lives, different realities. But the implication is very much that the two Spider-Men come from just.
Because he says he's been thinking about curing Goblin for a long time.
For
20 years.
For 20
after
years.
After he died or something.
And clearly, Andrew Garfield's character is still struggling with the grief of the death of Gwen Stacy. So it's obviously been, I would estimate, probably about the exact right amount of time since that's happened for how he's feeling about it. So it's kind of that's them now.
The spell just makes it work. Whatever you need to make it work.
The spell works perfectly for the purposes of the plot.
So my thing was I wanted them to do more with it because I was like, you've got these three people in the same room, but it doesn't feel like they're in the same room. And it wasn't until they were actually on the construction site or they're like around the Statue of Liberty that they start talking to each other and they have that conversation between the three of them. That's what I loved. The three of them just talking to each other, just like shooting the S about being Spider-Man with their three different problems. And Tobey Maguire's back's hurting and Andrew Garfield cracks his back. I would have taken so much more of that. I hope we get that at some point.
For a 2.5 hour film.
It's like a 10-minute scene, if that.
It does feel like there are so many bits that could have been better fleshed out.
Yes,
whilst at the same time cut. I mean,
but then I also wonder if they would have had to give that away in the marketing. Then does that affect the way that it all got clickbaity rolled out? It's
well, we will talk about this at the end about how they put the film together. Obviously, they've desperately tried to not let this get out, but everybody who's kind of interested in the film does kind of know about it. Like, how as somebody who probably, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you didn't go see the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films in the cinema. Andrew Garfield?
Oh, maybe I saw one in the cinema, but no, for the most part.
Is it fair to say that Tom Holland is probably the most prominent Spider-Man in your life?
Yeah, probably because of age. I knew Garfield quite well because I really enjoyed his films, and then I had my older brother shaming me for that.
So how did the dynamic? So somebody who's coming into that very much from sort of the Marvel angle, as opposed to us being old as the villains. How did that dynamic of the three of them work for you?
I liked it. I really liked seeing the three of them together. There was some good comedy. There was like good payoffs. It was a nice dynamic. But I don't know. It just the Marvel Spider-Man always just feels slightly different, even though I was much younger when I was watching the other ones. In that it does always cynical again. It always feels more corporate and engineered. I can't help feeling slightly bad for enjoying the moments because it's like
it feels so manufactured.
Yeah, it feels like fan service. It feels like they've like found some fan on Twitter who said, you know what, I would love to see this, and this, and then it happens. And it's like, oh, it's fun, but.
Well, they literally recreate the Spider-Verse scenes like in live action. Like they have the thing about the three of them talking about their own Aunt May's, their own Uncle Ben's, their own Gwen's or whatever who passed away, and like that's literally what happens in Spider-Verse. Like they're literally just like doing those beats, but it only works like in a positive way on nostalgia, on memories. That's why in the main review we said like it's barely a film in that regard. You couldn't just give it to someone. You need it almost only works for someone who's been around this stuff for like 20 years to the degree they want it to work. I don't think it works at all if you didn't spend 20 years of your life doing this stuff, to the point where when he complains about his bad back, and I was like, yeah, that's me.
I do that. I do that all the time. I remember when Tobey Maguire was young, and now my back hurts.
Yeah. Well, if I had been on this for 20 years, I would have started at the ripe, fresh age of 2.
Bless you.
So I mean...
Oh, so there's no excuse then, is what you're saying?
Should have got on it early.
It's actually quite an interesting point, that, because, like, Marvel films are traditionally aimed.
Yes.
I know are enjoyed by people of all ages, but they are aimed at a much younger audience than me and you.
It averages about 27 according to their data.
Well, that's wrong. Well, yeah, but that's only because it's like 60-year-olds pulling the thing up. Like,
Well,
if you're average
it's more older than you think.
Well, from what I've seen, it's normally targeted at a far younger age.
Right.
Are they going to get enough out of this? Because I can genuinely envisage a lot of huge Spider-Man fans of a certain vintage can go into that cinema, and because they're not in the marketing, right, will go, but who are they?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, a certain age, you've got the whole thing where it's just more Spider-Man, and then like a certain level of person, certain age of person, level in game, level up is just gonna say, that's cool. It's more Spider-Man. That's great.
Yeah.
And then, but then you have people like us who grew up with them, who recognize them from back in the day, and then there's maybe the people whose first Spider-Man was Andrew Garfield, which is maybe why they did it first. He's the first one who comes in. But I mean, it's curious to see how it goes, because I feel like if this goes down really well, you'll get all sorts of Lego sequel tying together multiverse stuff going forward.
It's interesting. Obviously, the final beats of the film are they then work together, the three of them, combine their spider powers to cure everybody.
Yes.
Everybody is...
It's a little file.
Yeah, they've got little devices that they've just somehow... They don't explain how they work or what they're going to do, but Electro is no longer that bothered about electricity. Sandman becomes just man. Green Goblin becomes just... Oh God, what have I done, Willem Dafoe?
I did love that he wore the Hobgoblin costume. We didn't talk about that when he first comes back, but he's got he destroys.
Got a big hoodie on, hasn't he?
Well, he loves. We skirt over so much. It's just going to come out in so many conversations going forward. But there's so much online discourse in this movie of that have been around these movies for the last 20 years. There's loads of things like that. Even though Dafoe looks hilarious with his little hood on when he's flying around when he first gets back on the glider.
People that don't like those, they hate fun. They don't like enjoyment. They don't want to milk this horrible corporate entertainment for all it is. If you look at that, you go horrid.
Can I just properly nail down your stance on this film here?
I hate myself for enjoying it.
Every element of the consumerist nightmare, hate it. Willem Dafoe's 90s funny Green Goblin costume, perfect. Do you know, I find it difficult to argue with that, to be completely honest. Anyway, So anyway, there was the big dramatic moment at the end is because Osborn is responsible for Aunt May's death. Tom Holland's Peter Parker does not attempt to save him. He
says he wants to rip him apart.
He actually fully goes to impale him. Nice callback to how he actually died.
Yep.
With his hoverboard, but is stopped
by bad Maguire.
By Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
Not in a... It doesn't become a bit of conflict or a bit of tension. He just stops him to the point where he's like, "Do you want to think about this?"
I did think he was going to say something.
I thought they were going to fight each other. I thought that would have been quite a nice way. But he realizes that what he's done is bad, and in the end, he things him in the neck and he cures him. And Doctor Strange then, as the universe is once again shedding itself 5 inches up the middle, decides that they realize the only way to fix it is for everyone to forget all about Peter Parker.
Totally called this before we went in. I called this before we went in.
He did, to be fair.
Everybody has to forget about him, so he finally recasts that spell. He seals the universe back up, but after his emotional farewells, nobody knows who he is.
Is the only way to be Spider-Man.
MJ's forgotten all about him.
Can I say
Ned's
right
forgotten
now, that scene in the donut shop at the end, I felt like my soul was being pushed out of my body with how much I was cringing into my... I know when movies try and do this really cute thing where it's like a long stare, but all I can think about is you've not said anything for a good 6 seconds and you're talking to a woman in a diner who doesn't know you. I'm sorry. I've met those customers. I've had men come in and talk to me and then stare at me for 10 seconds before ordering their next drink. That's all I can see, and I hate it. I know so many films do it. It's not just a Marvel thing, but I hate it.
Well, can you now consider the possibility that those men who are staring at you in public places for 10 seconds, welling up before they say a word, they are actually the long-term love of your life, and your memory has just been erased owing to some cataclysmic, multi-dimensional event? Have you ever stopped to think about
explanation for everything?
No, I do have to say I don't often think of the men's feelings in this situation, which is actually very horrible of me, and I can't wait for everyone to tell me so.
As Amy has just curled one out, there was this very emotional scene at the end. I thought it was quite an emotional scene.
No, let me backtrack one other bit, because the other bit that made me tear up genuinely was the bit where Zendaya's falling and Andrew Garfield comes in and catches her.
I did like that.
That is, as I can't remember which one of you said it, but the whole idea that it's just a load of fans are going, I wouldn't it be good if, I wouldn't it be good if,
But
I
it's
wouldn't it
just-
be good if.
Garfield is such a stellar actor that they sell that whole thing on a facial expression.
Yeah.
And it's just the way he looks there and the fact that he's actually caught someone this time and he didn't mess up. That got me entirely.
I did
loved
really
it.
like that. I
That
did.
was, by the way, that ended up being another man staring at a woman he didn't really know for 10 seconds and getting really emotional.
Yeah, and this time she was in his arms.
Spider-Man.
She was very tolerant of that.
They did do a bit of like, are you okay? Because I've caught you from falling to death. And she goes, yep. Are you okay? And that's kind of just the end of the scene.
To bring it back to the thing that Amy was talking about, though, that whole bit where Parker goes back to the donut shop and just stares at MJ.
I thought it was.
I did notice how long it had gone on for because it goes back to Parker's face, and he's tearing up as he's talking to her. But in the moment, like, yeah, that for me, like, I'm a huge Spidey fiction fan, so it's like that whole extrapolation of, you know, is the only way you can be Spidey to completely divorce
stare
yourself from
at
everything.
women.
You know, like if you're going to be Spider-Man, you're going to try and do the best thing for everybody, and it's always going to keep falling apart. Maybe you just shouldn't bother. I think that's one of the best things to explore in conversation about the Spider-Man film.
I love the idea of that, and I love him putting his little letter back in his pocket and going, no, this is best for everyone. It's my gripe with that is purely in the execution. If they'd cut just a few seconds off of each of those stairs, that would have been an absolutely fine scene. And once again, it's not. Yeah, or have MJ like kind of walk away.
They kind of do.
Can I just say, because I am aware of time here, that in many ways you're both right.
Of course,
you're both right. So we'll just overall, because I did want to try and get this to about half an hour.
Yes.
There's so much to talk about.
Yes.
Overall, I will say there is some post-credit stuff, some end-credit stuff. We will be doing a separate video on those. So you just have to watch more What Culture. You can't go to find out about that.
Touch on that.
It's been and got. He's got a cameo.
Charlie Cox is in this for like 5 minutes.
We will also
it's
talk,
a good time.
We will also talk about
sexy.
the implications of what that means, etc., etc. Again, in other videos, but just as a movie review, can I just get from both of you your quick overall feelings about how this movie worked for you and what your recommendation would be?
My recommendation would be to see it if you're in any way interested in Spidey fiction, but you're massively bolstered by seeing the other movies. Like that whole meme that was doing the rounds of, do I need to see the other ones before I see this? Yes, it is fundamentally better if you grew up with this stuff. It's a weird movie. It's not a movie for the first half, but there is some stuff in here that just on a sheer cinema event level you do need to see. You need to see it in a cinema, you need to see it with an audience, and it's worth seeing.
Now, Scott welled up twice.
Yes.
Did it pass or fail the repeat tier test?
I was saying this to Cleary when the film had finished and we were waiting for the post-credit scene. I cry so easily at films. I'll weep in the cinema. I don't care. Not once. There was something in each of those emotional moments where I knew that they were trying so hard to get me to cry. Didn't feel a thing. There was something missing.
You were too, though, when those movies came out.
No, I mean this. Like at this film.
I know, but the thing they're leaning on to some degree.
But the film overall.
It is an event. It's an experience. It's fun. People who say that you can't like it because of all the reasons I've said about like, oh, it's horribly corporate and hates women. You have to enjoy it for what it is. And I did have a fun time, not in the first half. But yeah, summary, if I turn my brain off to the things that I hate about life, the film was really nice, and I love Willem Dafoe and Andrew Garfield.
I've got to, I'm not even going to do a roundup because I echo both those sentiments absolutely perfectly. I think there is a lot to be loved in there if you've been fans of Spider-Man in any capacity over the years. Comics, TV show, I used to love the animated show, but particularly the old movies. There is so much there for you to enjoy. It does feel very much less of a film and more a series of, hey, do you know what? We've got so much money we could actually do. Bit of a flex from Marvel, but I also agree with Amy. There are certain things about it that you just kind of have to go, all right, well, I'm losing this battle in this particular film, so I might as well just try and enjoy myself. And if you do, then you will massively. I would
Second
say.
half is way stronger.
The first half is just not. The problem.
People don't have conversations in the first half.
I'm not gonna get in. Oh god, I wanted to chin whoever wrote the dialogue. By the way, in that first half of the movie, I wanted to sit them down and punch them into just being normal for 5 minutes. But overall, as a complete work. It's a nice time.
It's worth
lovely,
watching.
isn't it?
Yeah,
It's definitely worth watching. We loved it. But anyway, this has been the spoiler review, so feel free to crack whatever you want into the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Scott, where they can get you on Twitter?
@/LP89.
God, I knocked that over. Amy, and yourself?
If they're going to say horrible things about my opinions, then they don't. But otherwise, it's Amy Rapier.
And I'm @Adam Cleary, CLEOI. Say what you like about me. I'm just so old and tired now, I don't even care. But this has been our Spider-Man No Way Home full spoiler review. As I say, more to come. We'll do an ending breakdown, with the implications of certain things, and that other thing that Scott said that I completely forgot about. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. We really hope this is recorded properly, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thup, 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 thup.